Hi, I'm Vicki Roberts with Bloomberg Law. I'm here at the Littler Executive Employer Conference in Phoenix. Joining me today are Petesch, a shareholder with Littler, Wallace Brosman, who is the National Corporate Marketing Assistant at Canine Companions for Independence, and Mork, her service dog. The four of us are here today to talk about employee requests to bring service animals into the workplace. And Peter, we're going to start with you. So what are the legal requirements for employers considering the requests of employees who want to bring a service animal to work, and what are some of the pitfalls or ways an employer can mess up that process?
Well, it may well be a reasonable workplace accommodation to allow an employee to bring a service or other support animal into the workplace. And I think the pitfalls are there's a misunderstanding of what the requirements of the employment parts of the ADA are versus other parts of the ADA. In public accommodations, there's a very definite set definition of what a service animal is that performs a specific task, and it's a dog or a miniature horse. And Title I of the ADA is fuzzier and can include a variety of species and a variety of tasks, and can, there's some case law to support, include emotional support animals in the right context. I think the other mistake that employers make is the assumption that a service animal or support animal is never going to work in my workplace. What if somebody has allergies? And I think the response to that is, no, the ADA is really about following a process. Go through the process. Evaluate each accommodation based on the facts in front of you, based on the employee's condition, and based on the nature of the job to see whether a dog or other animal, frankly, could work in the workplace as an accommodation.
Okay. Wallace, is fraud much of a problem? In other words, do people ever try to bring fake service animals to work?
That's a really good question. For myself, I work at Canine Companions and we have pet-friendly environment. So I can comment on the fact that over the past decade, really, the number of fraudulent service dogs in public accommodations has skyrocketed. And from that, I can safely extrapolate that there are probably these kinds of requests for fraudulent service animals in the workplace as well. And it's not a victimless crime. It really impacts people with legitimate service dogs like Mork in performing their really life-saving and important work that they are doing for a person with a disability.
Mork, I'd like you to weigh in on this, please. From your perspective, what's the big deal about fake service animals? So Peter, in terms of best practices for employers then, what should they be thinking about?
Best practices for employers. First thing to think about is treat a request for an animal for an employee in the workplace like any other accommodation request. Get the appropriate documentation, evaluate that. There's no reason not to mainstream it with other accommodations. I think the second one is, as with other accommodations in the mainstreaming context, consider, if it's safe to do so, giving it a try in the workplace to see if it's effective and to see if it works, and also explore alternatives with the employee if it turns out that that might not be the appropriate accommodation for that workplace. And then finally, I think perhaps unlike so many other workplace accommodations, like a wider computer screen or an amplifier on the telephone, a service animal is a little bit like that 400-pound gorilla in the room, or maybe a 65-pound Belgian Malinois. It piques the curiosity of other employees, and employers need to understand the limitations of what they can and cannot tell other employees. They can't tell them that it's an accommodation, and they certainly can't share an employee's health information with other employees who are going to be inevitably very curious.
Wallace, I'd like to go back to something that Mork mentioned earlier. He talked about worrying about his safety in a public place. Can you talk to us about what that can result in or what the problems with that are?
It's a very serious problem for legitimate service dogs like Mork to have to worry about and be hypervigilant about fraudulent or ill-behaved service dogs in the public space. So, for example, too often now, people like me who use legitimate service dogs have to plan their life around whether there's going to be a fraudulent or out-of-control dog in public places or workplaces that could potentially cause harm to a service dog like Mork. And with that thought in mind, I have to consider my life and say, should I bring Mork to the grocery store so that I can get groceries, or do I need to leave him at home because I know that store always has those fake service dogs in their establishment? And what that means is that for me, I'm limited by fraudulent service dogs for my independence, my peace of mind, and frankly, my ability to lead life just like everyone else. It's a really significant problem, and too often that's the way that I'm planning my schedule in the day.
My final question is for Mork, and this is slightly off topic, but I've really always wanted to get the dog's eye view on the cat paw theory. The cat paw theory says that an employer can be held liable for discrimination when the decision maker had no discriminatory intent when it comes to an adverse job action, but was influenced by somebody who did. So my question, Mork, it's called the cat's paw theory. Are you sick of cats getting all the glory? Okay, there you have it. I'd like to thank Peter, Wallace, and Mork, and thank you all for joining us.